It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. PC sales, the lowest they've been since 9/11. What's going on? Paul and Mary Jo explain, plus give you all the latest Microsoft news next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, episode 295, recorded January 17th, 2013. Uncle Fester on steroids. Windows Weekly is brought to you by ShareFile.com. Enhance your workflow. Send files of almost any size easily and securely with ShareFile from Citrix. Try ShareFile today. For a 30-day free trial, visit ShareFile.com, click the radio microphone, and enter Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show about my favorite operating system, featuring my favorite two people, Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley.
Well, I hope at least half of that is true, Leo.
At least one part of it.
Did I say that through gritted teeth?
You did.
Paul Thurrott is, of course, the guy at the supersite for Windows, winsupersite.com. Mary Jo Foley writes about Microsoft for ZDNet, allaboutmicrosoft.com. You guys have your frustrations every once in a while.
I have never had any frustration with any Microsoft software or individual.
It's not, and by the way, if you use a computer or any technology, you're going to have frustrations. That's just
Leo, I swear at my computer so much my wife thinks I have Tourette's.
I know. You guys are very tolerant of my continuing login problems, but now I have done everything I can, everything in my power to ensure it never happens again.
Until next week.
Until next week. I got 7 days. Oh, lordy. So the big story, you guys, is, and I keep seeing this, is just that the PC sales have just not been good.
I don't know.
And you asked the question, rhetorical no doubt, is it time to hit the panic button?
Should have bought one of those big red buttons like they have in the Staples ads.
Change it from easy to ah!
So I think I talked about this for about 45 minutes last week, so I thought maybe Mary Jo could have a chance to.
Your turn.
Yeah, I know. Let's pass the torch, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been reading all the same reports everybody else has with analysts. Analysts are basically guessing what some of the sales are. Like this week, we had Brent Thill, who works for UBS, saying he believes Microsoft sold 1 million Surface RTs and they were planning on selling 2 million. And I like Brent a lot, and I do work with him sometimes. But I just feel like, where are these numbers coming from? We don't really know. And so I think you have to take all of them with a grain of salt. But this week, I wrote on my site a little bit about one of the things I think that that's getting the situation even more convoluted is we don't really know what the cause and what the effects are in the Windows sales equation. Like, you see people saying the reason PC sales are down is because everyone's confused by the Windows 8 UI. I've seen that story a few times, but you got to wonder, is that actually true, or were PC sales already going down and maybe Windows 8's buoying them up just a little bit? So it just feels like people are kind of really guessing at this point about what's causing what. Microsoft's not really helping the matter because of the way they count licenses. They count them as upgrades and sales to OEM. So we don't really even know how many users have actually activated Windows 8 or Windows RT at this point. We don't even know if Windows RT is part of the 60 million figure that they gave us as number of licenses sold. But we've got a lot of people guessing and a lot of people trying to draw conclusions from things that may actually not be the cause. Sometimes they're the cause, sometimes they're the effect. I just feel like it's really almost impossible at this point to declare Windows 8 a failure or a success. Also very early to do that too. So that was kind of my rant this week about this, that I feel like we get lots of people guessing. We just don't really know. But people are taking this as it's time to panic and everything's going to hell, basically.
What was it Donald Rumsfeld who said there are the things we know and the things we don't know, and they kind of meandered on from there.
Yeah.
What about the I don't know, let's say the supposition that maybe just the hardware isn't there yet. Maybe that people wisely are saying, well, I kind of like what I'm seeing. There's not a huge variety. Let me wait and see what's out there. I mean, certainly you can't deny the truism that Microsoft does, a lot of its business with business, and that businesses aren't rushing to upgrade. But that's a number of factors. For one thing, Windows 7 or even Windows XP on existing hardware probably is just fine. I mean, that may be just a measure of the maturity of the PC industry, not anything wrong with anything. Right? Yeah. If you bought a 2 gigahertz computer 3 years ago with 4 or 8 gigs of RAM, what is the urgency to upgrade? There is none.
Well, okay, but there is... Microsoft tried to create an urgency to upgrade by doing two things with this release. Generally speaking, targeting consumers, right, which is not the first time they've ever done it, but one of the first times. And going very specifically after new device form factors. And so, like what you said is absolutely correct. I have sitting next to me actually a Core 2 Duo laptop that Lenovo built probably 4 years ago, perfectly serviceable, works great. It will work great for several years. And will run whatever PC software is coming down the pike for a long time to come. But it's not a tablet. It's not, 11 millimeters thin or whatever. It doesn't weigh half a pound, and, it doesn't get 20 hours of battery life. And so there's those things that we're kind of shooting for with Windows 8. And, I'm a little worried that we get into this the situation with Windows 8 like we got into with Windows Phone, which was, when it first came out, it didn't take off immediately. And there were always these reasons why, One of the reasons why that has existed or lasted throughout its life cycle has been the apps thing, which I believe not to be completely true, but whatever. But in the beginning it was, we don't have cut and paste. We don't have multitasking, we don't have this, we don't have that. And as these things were added to the system, the rationale for why it wasn't doing well kept shifting to the next thing, So right now, what Microsoft is basically saying is that the right mix of PCs wasn't delivered to the marketplace at the launch, and that's why things were a little bit down from where they expected them to be. But now that those machines are coming into the market, things are going to be fine. And I guess we'll see if that's true or not. I mean, there's no doubt that the machines that are coming to market now are better in many ways than what was there in the beginning. But, what happens 3 months from now when we're still at the same place, I don't know. There's reasons for angst. I mean, the other thing is, as far as, fact versus opinion, I mean, there are some facts, one comfortable fact is that Windows PC sales are down in the last quarter over what they were a year ago and over what they were when Windows 7 launched. That's a fact. And that's bad. It is a fact that Windows 8 has not taken off to the tune that Microsoft expected it to. In other words, it is not sold as well at launch as they expected it to. That's a fact as well. So I guess we'll see. But I'm nervous about getting into a cycle where we just keep, misplacing the blame, to something else again and again. There's some things that Microsoft can fix, but I mean, I think there's some things that there's nothing almost that anyone can do anything about. That sometimes momentum happens and you just kind of get left behind because of the types of things that people buy and where they're looking, and they stop looking at these things. So we'll see.
Paul and I talked about this recently, where we were saying one of the most surprising things about the Windows 8 launch in hindsight now is that there wasn't anything to launch again. OEMs knew that Microsoft was going to launch Windows 8. They pretty much knew it was going to happen when it happened, at least in a very, maybe not exactly the day, but in a window. And you have to wonder, how could they not have had PCs out in a more timely fashion? And, there are a lot of explanations for that too, right? People saying component shortages, some people saying I think it was OEMs, it was Microsoft saying this. Microsoft saying the OEMs didn't really believe us that touch was going to take off. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. Nope. From the get-go, we knew Windows 8 was being designed as a touch-first operating system. There's no way OEMs said, we don't believe you guys, and we're going to keep making PCs that aren't touch PCs, even though this is a touch-centric operating system. So that part of the whole unfolding of how Windows 8 isn't or isn't selling is the most surprising part to me, because
she's so surprised she's
No, we lost
frozen
her.
solid. There she
She's
goes.
back.
Sorry, there was just your bandwidth. We gotta get.
sorry.
Can I buy you some
I
more
know.
bandwidth, Mary Jo? Can I just send you a check?
I know.
What is it? Can you
Send you a
get
check.
FiOS where you live?
No, that's the problem. I can't. Where I live, I can't.
It's so frustrating that Verizon
it's
rolled
really
out
frustrating.
FiOS, teased us all, and then said, "And we're done."
Yeah, I know.
That's all.
It's very frustrating. I know, but I
Do you have
need to look
Cablevision? What do you use?
Yeah, I got to look into cable. I don't have a cable.
Oh, please, let's get you cable.
Yeah,
Let's
I
get you
can
cable. I will, and seriously, I will gladly pay whatever it costs. So,
No,
I
you don't
mind
need
at
to
all.
pay.
No, but I'm glad to.
No,
Because we want to
appreciate
see
that.
your smiling face. You
I
look like you're in
appreciate
Minecraft.
Pack woman.
Exactly. I wonder though. You know, I see this all the time. Human beings have no sense of change. We think everything is the way that it is and it will always be that way. And we know better intellectually, but we have this feeling. And so there's the presumption that, for instance, I see people saying, well, every other version of Windows sells well. Well, maybe it was that way in the past, but what
Not
makes
Star Trek
anybody
movies, Leo?
what makes anybody think that the PC industry is in any way today like it was a few years ago?
Yep.
It's complete, and I think we have reached a plateau, and it's to be expected.
The thing, you know, as Mary Jo was saying, what she just said before she got cut off by the internet,
She looks great now, by the way. So obviously, Mr. Cablevision has thrown a hamster or two on the wheel.
Yeah, he was
or
listening.
like your downstairs neighbor stopped browsing
That's
Facebook
probably what
or
it
something.
is, yeah.
It amazes me when you think about all of the pieces of the chain and what these people do. Microsoft makes Windows. They're really good at it. You know, they did, I think, an incredible job this time around, looking forward, seeing what people were expecting of devices, and melding Windows to work with it. We can kind of argue about the strategy, but amazing for them to turn it around that fast. They are in constant communication with all of the parts of the channel, and more so because they're making their own devices. You've got PC makers that do nothing but make PCs, basically, at least those parts of their organizations, which also deal with the parts and all the parts of the supply chain. You've got retailers whose job it is to sell things that people want. And then all of these people talk to each other. How did anyone arrive at the market with the wrong devices when Windows 8 launched? It wasn't a surprise. This was all that these people were doing for the past year or two before this.
Yeah, but it supposes that there was some magic way they could find out what people wanted. Is there?
Look, when Microsoft makes Windows 8 the way they made it, for anyone to ship a non-touch laptop for $329 and that's their volume play for the launch, shows me that company doesn't get it.
That's a good point, but maybe
that is absolutely clueless.
Yeah.
And
although I
don't
know a lot of
understand
people
how
who
it's
bought
even
non-touch Windows PCs, so and are disappointed with Windows 8, and I say, well, why?
But that's the other thing. You know, we talked about this, I think, last week. You know, this notion that these low-end PCs are kind of killing the market and everything. Getting people to move toward tablets, toward touch devices, toward these highly mobile devices of whatever kind is one of the ways that you can not just change the PC market to something different, but also move it upscale a little bit price-wise. I mean, at some point, the $300 to $500 computer becomes a $500 to $800 computer. Not going to call it a computer because no one's going to spend any money on computers, but that becomes a more lucrative business. It becomes a business where PC makers don't have to put crapware on there and ruin the user experience.
Yeah, but they do.
I mean,
but they do.
I know it's crazy. I don't understand how no one gets this right.
The market forced them to do that. You and I both love signature PCs, and nobody's doing them. And the reason is the margins are. We know why. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The margins are so slender. They need to make extra money by putting crap on our computers.
But at what point do the margins become less slender? That's what I mean. In other words, once you start getting up to toward $800, I have to think.
Then you can stop.
Then you start making money on these things, and you don't have to put crap on there.
Doesn't Dell?
And people are delighted by the products they buy, and maybe they'll buy another one 3 years down the road or whatever, and not say screw Dell or screw HP or whatever company it was, because they're tired of that crapware and the terrible experience. Don't these people understand they're ruining it for everyone, including themselves?
Yes, they do. They are. They're very short-sighted, but maybe they're driven by quarterly statements. Maybe they're driven just by the desire to not go bankrupt this month. They may not have that luxury, right?
I wonder how much they make though off of that. Like, how much do you really get for putting a trial of Norton antivirus on a PC? Like, do you get $10? Penny?
No. They get more than
you
that.
think they get $10?
Yeah,
really?
I do. I think the total amount that they make out of crapware, and somebody should correct me if you don't have any idea. I'm making this up. If you know, correct me.
What could it be?
But I would
per
guess
PC?
they make $50 per PC on crapware. You know why? Because if you pay them $50, in some cases, they won't put crapware on it.
Not enough cases, and maybe that's something that I think it was Sony maybe tried doing that. It's kind of a weird extortion system where it's like, hey, listen, we won't screw up the PC if you pay us a little bit extra.
Oh, God, I hope it's not
it's a tough, kind of a value add, but
doesn't the new Vizio PCs, the Windows,
their signatures?
Yeah, their signatures, right? Yeah,
signature PCs, yeah.
And how much more are they? They're not.
They're not.
But
Nope.
remember,
So
Vizio is new
outsider-
to the market, and so they're trying to convince people.
Yeah. They're new to the market, so they're kind of an unknown brand.
Right. So maybe in 2 years, they'll have to put crap on there.
Or they will have just simply walked into this market at the right time and will sell things for the amount they should, and will make money on them. Obviously, they evaluated this from the outside and decided they were going to make money on it. They're not doing it as a charity.
Right.
So someone could
sometimes
figure it out.
you
Why
sell
can't
stuff
Dell, HP, and whoever else figure it out?
Sometimes you sell stuff at a lower margin than you'd like because you have other goals like getting into the business.
Yep. Okay, that's true.
I mean, business is complicated. Trust me.
Yeah. Words
I
to the
assume
wise.
Don't ever do it.
It looks complicated.
From a distance, it looks a little, okay.
Yeah.
But I think that, by the way, at least people who watch this show and are in the know love these Vizio PCs. They're pretty. They're signature PCs. But they're not a volume. They're not what they want to be, which is a volume vendor yet, right?
Yeah.
They're
Vizio.
Vizio's kind of become the Apple of the PC world. I don't know if that's what they wanted. The kind of the boutique, right? The kind of boutique.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
aren't they?
Sort of. Yeah.
Which is
They're
not
the Franklin computer of the.
But they're not
PC.
in the television world. They're not. They're
Right.
the high end of the low tier.
Yeah, they're the ones you can't afford the Samsung or the Sony, but you want that quality.
They're pretty good budget TVs.
Yeah,
that's not what they're doing in computers.
Although arguably that's what computers are, PCs are compared to Macs. The idea is we're kind of selling you the same thing, but it's a lot less. It costs a lot less.
Oh, I don't think that people see it that way. I mean, I know they see the price difference, but I don't think PC users feel like they're buying a second tier product.
I think that PC users feel like they're buying something pragmatic.
Okay.
I wouldn't call. And in fact, I know you can make and I do certainly make arguments that these things are superior in some ways, but I think of it more as a pragmatic thing. But that's what a Vizio is. It's I don't know if I told this story, but the first HD TV that we bought was very expensive, and we bought a 3 or 5 year service plan because we were kind of nervous about the state of this purchase. And it lasted exactly 1 month beyond that date, whatever it was, and then it died. And then the next one we bought, we only spent, maybe $700 on it. Actually, it might have even been less than that. I'm sorry. Probably less than that. And we figured if this thing lasts 2 years, it lasts 2 years.
Right.
We'll just buy another one. And these things, they just come, it's much bigger than the last one. The picture quality is better.
In fact, you don't want it to last 5 years because, in a few years, there'll be something better.
I look at it as being something I can throw away.
Do people see that computer that way? I think they do.
Yeah, they do. Of course they do.
They understand that they're now, by the way, I think.
But they don't die. That's the problem with PCs.
They don't die. And I think you could safely say that we are not going to see this. We're certainly not going to see the same pace of improvement that we've seen in the past 10 years. It's definitely slowed. That's my point, is that a 2 gigahertz XP machine is still a completely usable machine.
Yes, as a traditional computer. But again, I think the point behind Windows 8 was to shake the market out of that and push us toward these devices. And I think that these devices are in many ways more throwaway than PCs are right now for this reason. In other words, if you buy a Surface with Windows RT, this thing is not going to last. I mean, it will last 10 years, but the software that runs on it, the software that runs on its successors,
Right.
is going to be off running on its successors.
It's very much a first-generation product.
Yeah.
And everybody
But
probably knows that.
I think it would be really interesting to see either Microsoft or some OEM try making a really premium Windows PC and see if people would buy it. Not just people taking an average PC and jacking up the price because it has a touch screen, but like when we first heard about the Surface rumors, I remember everybody thought this is going to be the premium PC. And so what if it's more expensive? Like if you really care about the build quality and the special casing and all these things, that you would be willing to pay a premium price for it. And then when we saw what it was like, yeah, it was a nice first generation device, but it wasn't what I had thought they were going to do, which was build something that was more comparable hardware wise to a Mac. And really come out there and say, this is, I know. How do you do that?
I think people make expensive PCs and nobody buys them.
Right. I mean, one way is you offset it. You offset the cost by coupling it with services, right? And that, Microsoft's whole mission to be a devices and services company. So, okay, maybe you take a loss on the hardware like Amazon does, right, with Kindles, but you recoup that by having Amazon Prime and selling services and getting people to subscribe, basically. I mean, Microsoft could do that too, right? But they haven't so far.
Yeah. I don't know. It's almost like I think Dell and HP both tried to make the Acura to their Honda or whatever by, buying these high-end gaming machine companies and, trying to make these high-end PC lines. HP has this Envy line, which is, it's decent. But the problem is, I think, again, PC buyers are pragmatic and they look at the devices and they say, I can buy a $299 Dell at Best Buy. Damn thing's going to run for like 10 years. It's like, it's tough. It's tough to sell people on one that costs 2 to 3 to 4 times that much, even if it's better. It's the problem.
That is interesting.
I don't know how you fix it.
I wonder why that is. I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a really interesting point. Now, I spent over $5,000 on my next PC laptop because it's going to have It's my steampunk laptop.
Oh, okay. All right. That's, I was going to say, would you buy a 25th anniversary Mac or whatever that was? Like,
that was a winner. I do have one over here.
Yeah. Spend that much.
Okay, you know who does? The only people I can think of, gamers. Gamers will buy a high-end PC, but it's a tiny market.
Small market.
But a market, by the way, good enough that Dell bought Alienware. That's a high.
HP bought Voodoo.
Right. It's a high margin market that these companies probably want to study as much as own.
Yeah, well, they run them into the ground.
Yeah, sad. Because they end up saying, "Oh, we got to up the margins here."
Yeah.
I think if you could solve that conundrum, maybe it's not solvable. Maybe we are just in a different era of computing. Surely that's what Microsoft thought when they said we're going to reimagine Windows.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a
That's
different
absolutely
era.
right. Yep.
And so in that regard, you can't expect them to hit a home run first time to the plate.
Right.
They're going to take a few swings, and I think they've done remarkably well. They've done something very interesting. And give them a little time, and maybe it'll be something that will sell well again. The problem is that you have competition that's extraordinarily effective at what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. It's worth noting that I don't think it's even really fair to say that Windows 8 isn't selling well yet. Certainly things are down from, again, last year, 3 years ago, whatever, but still sold like 350 million plus PCs last year.
Right.
I mean, it's
all relative.
It's not falling off a cliff or anything.
It's all relative. It's what it's based on compared to expectations. Not.
That's one of the other aspects of business that I've always had a tough relationship with, this notion of constant growth.
Yes.
You can't have a business that just glides along making money at the same rate every year for 10 years in a row. No one's interested in that.
This is why I'm a bad businessman, because I thought, but what if we just try to get better and not bigger? Wouldn't that be interesting?
But why can't you do that? That's something that someone who's independent can do. One of the things that came out this week was that
if I had investors, I couldn't even consider it. Dell wants to go private
right,
for that reason.
Of course, but Dell was looking at going independent.
Right.
Stopping their being a public company.
Right, for that very
That's
reason.
one of those things they could do. They no longer have to worry about this constant growth treadmill. You know, it's like a rat on a little wheel, you know.
You don't have disgruntled investors coming to the annual meeting saying, "How come you only doubled profits? What's wrong with you?"
Right. Or you get the guys at the Microsoft, the annual shareholders meeting that are constantly, rightfully, bitching and moaning about the share price that's never gone anywhere, despite the fact that there's nothing Microsoft can do about that. Right. You know, well, we have no one, you know, apparently there was a voodoo curse taken out of Microsoft 10 years ago. I don't know. It's hard to say what happened there.
Well,
we just lost Mary Jo, didn't we?
Did we? Oh. She's a cute little picture of Mary Jo there, though. Can we call Mary Jo back?
At least she's smiling.
Do I have any engineers in the house? I think somebody's doing something. Otherwise, things wouldn't be happening like that.
Uh-oh.
There's magic. The magic is going on. And of course, what always happens when things like this, markets like this change, is there's always this discomfort and issues, and there are new incumbents arise, and new challenges arise, and so we're in a kind of a new phase of the PC market. That's obvious. You can't expect it all to go smoothly. And
well, it hasn't.
Mary Jo is now offline. Apparently, her DSL provider heard us dissing them, and they have.
Is she up?
They cut the cord. We're working on her. Karsten just told me we're working on getting her back.
Okay.
We are going to buy Mary Jo a big fat pipe. You have a good connection. Your cable modem, right?
I have FiOS.
Oh. No wonder. Sometimes it's us, by the way. We have 150 megabits symmetric, but it's divvied up and stuff, and sometimes it doesn't. The divvying isn't done perfectly. By the way, good news: BlackBerry 10 is going to support EAS.
Hooray! I don't fully understand this yet, by the way, and here's a little wrench in the whole EAS plan and all of the bitching and moaning we've been doing on the Windows side about Google dropping support for EAS. Microsoft released this past week a new version of its cloud-based management system, Windows Intune, and it now supports the management of Windows RT and Windows 8 devices and Windows Phone 8 devices, as well as what it previously supported, which was Android and iOS devices. Oddly enough, if you have Windows 8 RT, Windows Phone 8, or iOS, it supports a new management infrastructure. But if you are using Android, it still uses EAS. And actually, Microsoft has sort of moving beyond EAS in their own management product.
Wow, isn't that funny?
Yeah, so I need to look into this a little bit more, but yeah.
That's interesting. Well, that's
EAS,
another transition.
Maybe getting de-emphasized.
So when we say PC sales dropped, you said, what is it, 350 million?
Yeah, so I'm just working off the top of my head, but the rough statistic is that PC sales in the fourth quarter of last year, worldwide and in the United States, were down and this is the first time year over year that this quarter has been down, and I think over 5 years.
Wow.
So down compared with the same quarter a year before. Windows 8 PC sales were down during that same launch quarter when compared with the Windows 7 launch quarter from 3 years ago. But also calendar year 2012 PC sales were down slightly from the previous year, 2011. That's the first time that's happened since 2001.
Wow.
And I don't want to, I think I wrote this somewhere in a post somewhere.
In 2001, it dropped because the dot-com bubble burst and the bad economy.
And because of 9/11.
And 9/11, right.
So actually, the interesting thing is that, yes, they blamed the drop on PC sales for that year largely on 9/11.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a little touchy, obviously. So this year we don't have that kind of an excuse. It's kind of interesting.
It would also make sense if I'm just putting my head into the managers at Fortune 500 companies, that you would want to maybe take a wait and see, not on Windows 8 in general, specifically, but in general on the PCs and to see what tablets can offer.
See which ones make sense.
Yeah.
See which form factors take off.
I would
and
do
what you said earlier is
I would do a
absolutely right.
pilot project. I would have, I would buy some of these devices, show them department heads, talk about what's going on. I would wait. I would not.
Joe reports that she has reset.
Okay.
And that she is back online.
So she's obviously online. She was able to communicate with you, unless you two have some sort of mental telepathy.
She says,
if you were Microsoft, what could you do to get people back in? I mean, you're stuck with the OEMs you've got.
Well, think about what's happening, right? So it's certainly the case that they're moving Windows to this new device market because this is sort of the future of computing. And so this is going to be a rough transition. But the hope is that when we emerge on the other side, that the market for this is actually bigger than the market is for PCs today. So there's some growth potential there. They really want to get people on a subscription-based system for their software, for Windows, for Office, for everything. They want to have basically like a Microsoft subscription for consumers, like they do basically for businesses, because that protects them from this kind of a thing. They've been living with this process where every 3 years they release a new Windows version, and there's kind of a big bang, and then things trail off, and then there's a big bang, and things trail off, and they want things to be more even.
So so that's one of your goals. How do you get people to buy subscriptions at home? They're not going to do that.
Well, I think Office has found an interesting way of making it happen, because with this next version of Office,
you're paying for services. Services people pay monthly for.
But they're expanding the license for Office out to match the way that people are actually using devices. And so instead of you buying a single version of Office that runs on a single PC, which they'll still sell you if you want that, they're selling you a subscription where you can put this thing on 5 computers and devices. And that's a significant expansion of the licensing of Office to individuals. That's a really big change. Maybe Windows goes that way in the future as well. And by subscribing to Windows, you would get upgrade rights on devices that maybe you wouldn't get, or it would just be prohibitively expensive otherwise.
Okay, so that's one way, a site license in effect.
Yeah.
I think people also understand the notion of paying for services. Paying for software monthly, it's like, well, wait a minute, it's the same software I had last month. Why am I going to pay for it again?
Well,
ongoing
services, right?
Ongoing services, I'm getting something, cloud storage or something.
Well, but Fios, for example, we pay for, there's a bunch of things that we pay for in one bill, and there are advantages to putting it all in one bill. So we have the cable TV, we have the internet connection, we have landlines, which we can't get rid of because it's actually cheaper to keep them than it is to get rid of them, which I'll never be able to explain to you why. And then everyone but me is on a Verizon cell phone.
Right.
And so I think we have, 4 phones. Actually, 4 phones. Yeah, 5 phones. Stephanie, my wife, my kids, and her parents are all on our thing.
Right.
And
that makes
a lot of stuff. And so on my Fios bill is humongous, but the cost of that stuff separately would be more.
Right.
And so you could almost imagine a Microsoft subscription where it was Xbox Live Gold, it was Xbox Music Pass.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
It was Office 365 with those Office things. It was Windows. It was some kind of a centralized Intune style management infrastructure for consumers, where you could have parental controls that are being pushed out to your kids' PCs that are assigned, in different ways. You could kind of picture this whole portal thing.
By the way, Mary Jo is back. Welcome back, Mary Jo.
We've been kind of freestyling since you left.
And I think we're doing well. The model for those MSDN, I think about MSDN. I know I'm getting really static software, but I have a subscription. That makes, and it's expensive, but it makes sense to me because I'm getting a lot for that.
Well, I just went to, I signed up for Intune to test that.
We're talking about what Microsoft could do, Mary Jo.
Yeah.
To succeed,
To succeed in this.
They have a really friendly portal for Intune that goes on devices. It's like the super simplest thing. It's like 3 tiles, and one of the tiles says something like your software. And you could almost imagine a home version of this where your kids could go to this thing and only see the parts of the store that you have said are okay for them. Either some sort of rating or age-based thing, or some explicitly things that you put in there that you knew that they would want or like, or that you wanted on their computer. or a tablet or whatever. And I think that maybe is the future of it. It's basically it's pushing people to subscriptions.
Right.
Because otherwise you've got these, like you said, there's a computer, you buy this big hunkin' laptop, put it in your kitchen or something. It sits there forever. No, it's never going to break down. It's going to run Windows XP for the rest of its life.
That's the problem.
You know?
That's the problem.
You got to change. You got to break the cycle.
Yep. Break the cycle of domestic
PC abuse.
PC abuse. Developers. I just
we
thought I'd
heard
say
that before.
I just thought I'd say that. By the way, did you guys laugh when Steve Ballmer ran on stage last week?
Yeah.
During the Qualcomm keynote?
He's always going to be a nut till the end.
He is a character, and that part of him I like. I know we mock Monkey Boy and all that, but that really, enthusiasm, you're never going to get me to criticize that.
Yeah.
That's not inappropriate.
No.
It's how he runs the company. You might get me to criticize that. But he's a sales guy. Have you seen Ballmer chasing a cake, the video?
Yeah, that was great.
I wonder if I can find that. Yeah, here we go. I don't know why I'm going to show this. Just for fun. Here's Steve Ballmer running on during the Qualcomm keynote. And we finally figured out why he's running like that. It's like the, you've been to the dog track, right, Paul? You're in that area. It's like the little metal bunny that they use to get the greyhounds to run.
He does have a crazy expression on his face.
He does.
He's a crazy person.
I love him.
You know?
That I love. He's Uncle Fester on steroids. That I enjoy. Give me that, Steve Ballmer. And then Wu, the guy, who was it? No, the Qualcomm guy was CEO was trying to. So Steve starts talking about all the partners they've got, and Mr. Qualcomm interrupts him, and Steve just I got some more.
Keep going.
I'm spitting this out.
Still talking here.
Yeah.
I love that.
I can get this keynote back if I want it.
Yeah, right. Anytime. Qualcomm boy. It's mine, I'm letting you have it. So little prizes to get people to write software for, what is it, for Windows Phone 8 or for RT? What are we talking about?
Both.
No one knows.
All kinds of contests, little programs aimed at getting, developers excited about this new platform.
Developers. Our developers, and I saw there are a lot. What they reached the plateau in 30,000 apps or something in the Metro store. They're getting. Aren't developers flocking to this new platform?
Flocking is a strong word, Leo.
Yeah.
Aren't they dribbing and drabbing?
It's definitely getting better.
They're interested, right? Like
It's Windows. How hard could this be?
Right. Well, it's hard. It's really hard because it's so different. Like now you're writing to a new API, which is the WinRT API. You're having to use the new interface, the Metro design principles, all this. So, it's not like developing Windows apps in the past. I mean, you can use a lot of the things you knew, like you still can use the .NET languages and all that, but the preferred platform is HTML and JavaScript, and that is something that newer developers who aren't traditional Microsoft developers may know, but a lot of the very long time existing Microsoft developers, they don't know those things, and some of them are fighting it, and some of them are trying to learn. So I think it's very much a time when the developer community is in flux around what Microsoft's doing here.
It's definitely getting better.
It's getting better.
Like
it is.
I feel like I'm often maybe a little too negative. I do want to say, I get up every day and I look at the store, see what's going on there. There's new apps all the time. It's getting there.
It doesn't help to read articles that say PC sales lowest since 2001. That does not help.
I can't invent the news. You have to report on that.
But I would say to a developer, there's still more PCs being sold than any other platform, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, it still beats anything else.
Does it?
I think.
I don't know. I mean,
What
I think
else?
Android's right there.
Oh, yeah, Android phones. Yeah, if you just did Android phones, I guess. Yeah,
Android phones. Okay.
they're activating.
Certainly in the
pretty
compute,
fast.
So full size tablets, are only a fraction of PC sales, but those are growing, big time, as they would. It's a new market, and then the expectation is that tablet sales and PC sales will be roughly the same by what is it? 2016, I think, was the latest date that we got.
Do developers enjoy developing for Windows?
You ever see the Willy Wonka movie?
Yeah.
The little guys are dancing around in the chocolate.
Loompa,
Yeah, it's like that.
Do you think they do it because they have to?
This is a complete, not a non sequitur, but kind of a weird coincidence. But in my data destruction, I went back and destroyed all my old backup DVDs and CDs from, that go back 10 or more years. And I've got all these hard drives, the old hard drives I need to wipe the data out on. I, of course, looked at some of it. And some of the stuff that I saw in there were these old books I had written and then old books I never wrote. And I used to write a lot of development books. I wrote books about Visual Basic and ASP and, writing dynamic websites and things like that, SQL Server type things. And it is striking how often Microsoft changed their data access APIs over the years, back in the old days, back when there were things like COM and DCOM and then COM Plus and ActiveX, and it kind of went on and on and on, ADO, RDO, and all these different methods for accessing data, basically the same things, but just rewritten. And that was frustrating to me back then. I have to think that if you're a developer today and you went from non-managed code to .NET, .NET framework, and you WPF and the Avalon stuff, and then Silverlight, and now they're like, here we're going to get rid of that, and here's something completely new. It's very similar. It uses the same languages, C#, Visual Basic, and so on. Managed code like APIs, very clean, similar to what you used to, but not the same. And I think that there's some kind of resentment that occurs over time when it feels arbitrary after a while, like they just keep changing this stuff. And obviously there are business reasons for doing it. They don't actually do it arbitrarily. But I have to think from a developer standpoint, this has to be a bit tiring. And you wonder when it's going to end or if it's going to end. I mean, obviously these things have to evolve, but it seems like they just keep starting over. And so I don't know. I don't develop software full time or anything like that, obviously, but I look at this stuff and I have to think it's as good as it is. And it looks good. If you're a developer, you have to be a little tired of it by now, I would think.
Yeah. I do hear, though, some developers raving over C#, for instance. People really like C#.
Well, that's just the language, though. I'm talking, in other words, the APIs have changed completely.
No, I understand. But, shifting APIs are not unique to Microsoft. If you write for a new platform, you have to learn a new API. And I can't think of a consistent API.
I can.
Who?
When Apple switched to Mac OS 10, they created, they had Carbon, right? Which, if I'm not off the top of my head, was
Carbon was
the old stuff,
the compatibility layer
for the old stuff. Bring developers forward to some new capabilities.
And then Cocoa.
Then they had Cocoa, which was the Objective C next step stuff.
Their modern API.
If you went from Next Step to OpenStep to Mac OS 10 Cocoa to iOS. By the way, that's same thing. Those APIs are still called NS underscore.
I know, isn't that funny?
They're all in there. So I hear you. And by the way, there are absolutely problems when you do that as well. I mean, it's harder to introduce new concepts a decade into it.
Right. Well, I think Apple's, for instance, suffering right now. We've seen stories about falling iPhone sales, and I believe that that's true, even though there's some question about whether it's true. We'll know next week. But I think that iOS hasn't been a shifting platform, but it's, as a result, looking antiquated.
Okay, but...
So, as you say, incorporating new features into an unchanging API
a little harder
is tough.
15, 20 years in, absolutely.
Yeah, you get bound in cement.
But there's a nice consistency. I mean,
iOS is the oldest mobile OS out now.
That's wow.
How about that?
Nice.
How about them apples?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, but on the developer issue, it's almost again like what we were just talking about earlier with the hardware. It was surprising to me when Windows 8 launched that there were showcase apps out, but there weren't a lot of them, and a lot of developers didn't know anything at all about Metro, about the new WinRT API, or anything until build, the very first build, and so that wasn't a whole lot of time to write apps.
No.
When everything changed, basically. And, part of this was Microsoft's desire for secrecy, and they didn't want to go blabbing to developers because they know developers blab. But it also felt like, that there wasn't a huge push after build to really get people on board. It feels like that's starting to happen more now. But after build, the first build, Microsoft just said to developers, okay, go watch the videos of all the sessions we did at build, and you guys can figure it out and write some apps. And that was kind of it. And I kept talking to developers as we were getting closer to the Windows 8 launch and said, are you writing something for the platform? And they're like, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing, or I want to, but I'm not totally sure how. And it just felt like Microsoft could have done so much more to go after developers and evangelize Windows 8 earlier than they did. I feel like they're starting to do that now, but it's like a year into things now, since developers first heard about things. So that's another. Right. I think that's another reason. There are apps in the Windows 8 store, and there are also more and more apps in the Windows Phone store too. But I think there could have been even more if Microsoft had decided that was a huge priority, and that they really had to maybe even go and pay developers to write some apps. They did that on Windows Phone at the beginning. They never did it for Windows 8.
Nothing
wrong.
Well,
if the strategy was build it and they will come. That's not a good strategy. I mean, I think if the movement toward tablets and so forth has proven anything, it's that people are ready to move on, and you can't just assume because you've done it and added it to Windows that it's just going to
people will just
be
do
successful.
How different is the API for 8? Is it that different?
No, honestly, it's not. But this is one of those areas
add
where
new classes for touch.
No, that's what Apple did, right? I mean, no.
Oh.
The difference, as you move forward, if you want to program for Windows Phone 8 or Windows 8/RT, those things are very, very similar. There's a lot of overlap there.
But you have to make that.
What they're different with is the previous stuff, Silverlight and all that kind of stuff. And so a lot of times it's a little bit unfortunate. You see, classes and APIs that basically duplicate the functionality of something that existed before. They have slightly different names. Maybe the functions have different names. It's the little things that kill you. Obviously, if you know the language, you understand how these managed API type things worked in the past. You understand the gist of this. You're able to jump right in.
Yeah.
You just need to know the.
Just buy a book. Get a reference manual. And look it up. All right, we're gonna move on, and I just want to I'll interrupt this broadcast with a quick word from Smokey the Bear. He's just to cheer you up. This will just make you feel better. You'll just feel a lot better after you watch this short video announcement. And I will now talk about
what's that?
Didn't that cheer you up?
What was that?
It was a bear putting
he putting his coat in
fur in the laundry? Yeah.
So he's actually like a skinny thing on the inside.
Well, he's not that skinny, but he's definitely a little thinner. and apparently he was wearing bear boots and bear boxer shorts.
That's crazy.
Only you can prevent forest fires. All right. I just wanted to cheer everybody up. Mostly me. And just point out that we're in a new world, and that's why we like technology, right? Because it's always new and it's always different, and there's challenges. And if you're a technology company, there's no bigger challenge than keeping up, than staying current. It's the innovator's dilemma, my friends. So you've got a great little bit here with us and a Guinness. Is this Paul or you, Mary Jo? I like this.
Paul. This is all Paul.
Okay. So, Paul, who's with us?
I wasn't sure else.
I like
these things are only sort of
us?
related.
I want to know who us is here.
Us the people. We the people.
I'm drawing a line, Mary Jo.
Yes.
There's you guys, and then there's me.
No. Now, with us is LG and Lenovo and Asus are all apparently at somewhere down the road toward creating Windows Phone 8 handsets this year.
LG, Lenovo, and Asus. Wow.
Yeah, LG's not that surprising. Lenovo,
no, they make a lot of
not
handsets.
that surprising.
Does Lenovo have they ever made a handset? I don't think so.
Yeah, they have one in China now.
In China, okay.
Probably.
And Asus has made handsets, I think.
I don't know, do they make them at all?
I don't know.
That's no. Yeah. Why do I think they made the Dell Streak?
Oh, jeez, they could have. Asus. I mean, that's how they got. They used to make all of Dell's computers. I think wasn't that Asus?
Yeah. For some reason, I think they made the Streak. Oh, they make the Nexus 7. They make tablets. Yeah, they do. Yeah. So they make tablets. The Asus Pad phone. That's just probably just another tablet.
Yeah,
it's a
that thing looks
4.3-inch Super AMOLED tablet phone.
Right.
Which, by the way, and I'm just going to say this on every show, so that when it happens, I get credit. I firmly believe that the next iPhone is going to be a Mac Mini with phone capability built in.
I was actually just thinking, if someone wanted to make like a Windows phablet, would it make more sense to base it on Windows Phone 8 or to add phone capabilities to Windows RT?
Bada bing. Now, see, Apple's in a nice situation because iOS is iOS. But I think, I think there'd be a simple thing to make.
So
this
does that become an iPhone? What do you call a giant Apple product?
Yeah, I don't know, Jumbo, Maxi,
Jumbo, whatever.
The Maxi Pad.
Maxi.
Yeah, call it the Maxi.
Or does it become an iPad mini phone? I don't know. What do you call it?
It's already an iPad Mini with phone. I really think that this could be a.
It's too. You know, that device is nice for a tablet, but it's too wide. Like the way you're holding it, it's a little too wide, isn't it?
No.
Yeah.
No, my position now is, and I think there's some evidence in the market as we watch the Galaxy Note 2 the uptake has been very strong. The Note people were a little bit like, oh, I don't know, and then they got over it, and it turns out they really like big screens. Now the difference is that you still can carry in your pocket. This you couldn't, but I just think people would love one device.
And by the way, the whole notion that, and like everyone else, I have one here, so I'll just hold it to my head. The notion that you're going to make a call like this is actually semi-ludicrous.
Nobody does that.
I don't think anyone actually does that.
No.
Because most people
Bluetooth
that
or earbuds
will have Bluetooth, and there'll be other methods for doing that.
And this has a camera, and you could do FaceTime on it. You could do Skype on it.
And unlike my phone, I can actually read it. You know what I'm trying to.
Yeah, maybe that's because that's why, because I'm getting old and I need bigger. but I just think this would be a great product. This is
the baby boomer iPhone.
Well, there are a few of us.
Yes. You know, remember there's been all these rumors about Asus doing a 7-inch Windows RT tablet, I think it is, or is it Windows 8? I can't remember. So maybe that's what this is, right? Maybe this is like the mini tablet that is going to let you also make calls.
Interesting.
This could be that. And what if this runs Blue, right? The next version of Windows that we keep hearing about due out, right?
Maybe that's what Blue is.
Maybe that's what Blue is, right? I mean, there were rumors Blue was optimized for 7-inch form factor. So, but the thing we don't know is what is the 7-inch form factor? Is it a combined phone and a tablet? And I actually was at the National Retail Federation show. Well, I didn't go to the show, but I met with some of the companies there this week here in New York, and I met with the Windows Embedded team, which was interesting because I asked them. I said, could an OEM, any OEM, actually license the Windows any of the Windows embedded operating systems or Windows Phone and put that on a tablet? And they said no. They said Microsoft is telling OEMs who want to put some version of Windows on a tablet to talk to the Windows team and license it from them. So, you know, a lot of people thinking maybe they're going to put Windows Phone as the operating system on these. I think no. I think it's going to be some variant of Windows, but not Windows Phone operating system.
So I'm not so far off base. I thought you guys would mock me.
I think you're right. I think you're right on.
I think that's where the
How hard
market's
would it be
headed.
to add a phone calling app to
It's trivial.
any of these
Or
things?
what if it's
RT,
just
whatever?
Skype? What if Skype is
Well,
the
that's
phone?
what somebody said. It was, Apple has FaceTime, or you could put Skype on here, and Microsoft has Skype. You could easily do that. I think though that there's still now this is vestigial and probably will go away. So you're right in the long run. Who needs a phone company? Just need data. But for the time being, people still want a phone number and they want text messaging via SMS, but that's fading out. I don't think that that's going to be around for that much longer. 10 years.
Yeah, it's going to be all IP based.
It'll be all IP.
It's going to be all IP. Everything's going to be IP.
And you know, the carriers know that. That's why they're building out LTE. LTE is an IP network.
Right.
They don't care. They don't care if you make voice calls. They just want you to buy, mobile data. That's what. Unlike the cable companies who don't like being in the data business, the phone companies, I think, get it. They know they're in the data business. Mobile data, and then it doesn't matter. Then you just want a device that you can do all of that on. And the Mini is small enough. I guess for me, these 7-inch tablets are a good form factor. I wouldn't want to carry a 10-inch tablet or an RT, Surface RT around all the time. But this is small enough that it's not such a big deal. I'd have to get a Merce.
A Merce.
A man purse.
Yes. You would.
I have resisted the allure of the man purse, Leo.
Okay, another prediction.
Also going to wear shorts with socks.
In the year 2020, it will be acceptable for men to carry purses. Just a prediction.
Wow.
It's either that or like strap-on, holsters for.
I'm more interested in strapping on, Leo.
Oh boy.
So with us, LG, Lenovo, and Asus doing Windows Phone handsets in 2013, rumored. Against, who's against? Who's against? What is negative? What are the negative trends, Mr. Thurrott?
Lenovo just announced a Chromebook.
What?
And you know what?
What?
I mean, seriously? Yeah.
What? You know what? No. Okay, I figured that out. That's a shot across Microsoft's bow. That has nothing to do with the product. No, seriously, they don't. But
listen,
remember what we said?
I want you
that
to identify the mobile platform that nobody wants.
Right.
And I want you to build one of those things.
But remember what we said is the OEMs might be pissed off at Microsoft for Surface, but what are they going to do? That's what they're going to do. They're going to say, well, we do have alternatives.
It's crazy.
They're not good alternatives.
Lenovo also makes Android tablets. That makes sense. I understand why
they're already in that market.
Chromebook? A Chromebook ThinkPad?
Well, I wouldn't buy one. We don't know how well they're selling. We just know that they keep selling out, but that might be because they made 20 of them.
I don't think they've made any of them. Have you ever seen one of these things in the wild?
Yeah. No, I have.
Getting one
quite a few. In fact, Jeff Jarvis, for the last
anyone
month,
normal. I'm sorry. No.
Normal.
Anyone
okay, you didn't. I forgot that. But he's only used a Chromebook. People have started.
Listen.
Drew Olenoff showed up with a Chromebook. Not a net notebook, but basically, it's a browser. That's all it is.
It's literally.
And it's not really functional enough for most uses. Fur9999 in our chat room says education market only.
That's what the
Lenovo.
Yeah,
that's true.
So that's not such a big deal.
Blurry for some reason.
Right. Now you got the problem. You're blurred.
Oh, Paula's or me?
No. You. Oddly enough, you've been looking great.
Hey,
you look
oddly.
You're taking away my bandwidth. You're like a bandwidth vampire.
She's sucking it from the left side of the screen.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mary.
So when Google was first doing the Chromebooks, I don't know, Paul, if they sent you one to try out. A couple.
Yep.
The C48.
I got one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, wow, this thing is horrible. Like, who would ever use this? But now I see more and more people at ZDNet, some of our bloggers, who are using them and loving them. And we even have Matt Baxter Reynolds, one of our bloggers, this week say he thought the Chromebook was just like the iPad, and he uses it just like the iPad. And he got ridiculed for that post. But in a way, I'm like, you know what? The way I use my Surface is I mostly use it with web apps. I don't download a ton of apps onto my Surface. I can. That's what makes it great. I have the option to do that. But I think it's a really interesting point that web apps are getting better. And I haven't looked at a Chromebook in 2 years, but maybe now that's not a horrible proposition like it was 2 years ago.
I'm in the same boat. I use a CR48, and that's what I've been judging this stuff on.
Yep.
And it has apparently gotten better.
It has gotten better, but every time they announce some update to it, like the one that added that Windows taskbar and all that stuff, pull the thing out, plug it in, turn it on, do the update. And I think, oh, yeah, because I use Chrome. I like Chrome. It's all these extensions and everything. It's great, web apps. But then you run into some, you don't have to use it for too long where it's like, I can't do this. Yeah. It's just not.
It feels limiting.
It's not there. And the other thing I would just say is we just talked about $299 Windows laptops. Buy one of those and put Chrome on it.
Right.
Well, I mean, and then have all the advantages of the wonderful stuff you can do locally on Windows. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, a Chromebook, to be artificially limited in that way.
Can't deny it. We're all in agreement, and yet there you have it.
And isn't Chromebook the best-selling thing on Amazon computer-wise right now?
Is it?
Somebody told me that recently, and I was like, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah,
like
I've heard that. Yeah, I don't know what that means, though. Yeah.
Well, let's go look at the
Check it out, because
the electronic computers.
I know.
How do we do that?
I think if you go to laptops, tablets, and netbooks, you can see what the best sellers are.
Sort by something.
Some are best selling.
Laptops.
Can you?
Well, Chromebooks are sold separately from laptops.
Well, no, they're in the PC. They're in the laptops and tablets sphere.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Well, I mean, okay. So if you do laptops, $0 to $399, most popular is Chromebook.
All right. Oh, here's number one. No. Here it is. Best sellers, electronics, notebooks. Samsung Chromebook, number one, $314. Number two, the Apple MacBook Pro, $1,000.
That's quite a range right there.
Number three, Dell Inspiron for $466.
Wow.
So 91 days in the top 100, the Samsung Chromebook is number one in notebooks on Amazon. So actually, that is a data point I didn't have. That does change things. We're wrong. We're just wrong.
I just don't know what to make of this.
It's crazy. I want to try a Chromebook again just to try it again.
In fact, but I didn't want to buy the Acer because I heard it was kind of chintzy. I was waiting for them to get more Samsungs. I guess they have. I don't know if they have the hot one.
There's a Samsung 11-inch for $250.
Yeah.
Actually, it's temporarily out of stock.
Yeah, those are. See, that's the problem. Is that I don't know how many Samsung made of those.
So
but that may be the netbook thing all over again, Paul. And you pointed out how bad that was for the Windows market. It could just be that all over again. We keep getting fooled by crappy computers. Going back to the VIC-20.
Jeez.
Really, the VIC-20 hurt computing.
Commodore ruined everything.
No, it did, because a lot of people who bought their first computer
doesn't know anything about electronics.
Well, they thought, oh, it's what was it, $100 or $199? Oh, look, we can get a computer for Junior for nothing. They bought it. It ended up in the closet, and they said never again, and that hurt computing for years, I think. I remember that.
I could contort that into Commodore. It was a crime against humanity.
It was. And, of course, there's people in the chat room saying, the VIC-20 was great. The VIC-20 was powerful. The VIC-20, Christmas '82, it got me into computing. So I stand corrected again.
Yeah.
No, it was pretty terrible.
Okay.
I want to be clear about that.
Okay, there's one. VIC-20 was lousy.
No, it was bad. Commodore 64 was fantastic.
You know, some of the Commodore stuff was good, but the VIC-20 was their attempt to get in that cheap market, and it was really too cheap. They went too far.
That's right. They did, Leo. They went too far.
Now you've done it.
That's it.
It was the netbook of its time. It was a junky a junky computer that people bought because it was cheap, and only because it was cheap. And as a result, there was backlash. People said, "Oh, I'll never buy a computer again." So against us, Lenovo announced a Chromebook, and the PS3, what, is outselling the Xbox?
According to a report this week.
What?
Buried, apparently, in some report, was that by the end of 2012, total sales of the PS3 into the channel.
Total sales of lifetime sales?
Yep.
Wow, that's different.
Well, not really. I mean, the PS3 has been in market 1 year less than the Xbox. And, this is the thing. I keep going back to this with the Xbox. The Xbox is always held up as this huge success for Microsoft. They're huge, big, successful consumer brand. I'm actually not convinced that that's the case at all. I actually believe that Microsoft has spent so much money on this, invested, we would say.
Yes.
That I don't know that it's ever going to get this back. I don't know what it is purchased with all of this money. I think the original Xbox, there was some estimate that they'd spent somewhere around $5 billion on this platform, and it was over $3 billion for the Xbox 360. And of course, they had that $1 billion warranty issue.
And it's kind of hard to make any money when you're selling a product that is at a loss. You can't exactly make it up in volume.
More Windows PCs are sold in 1 quarter than the Xbox has sold in its entire life cycle.
But Paul, it's a Trojan horse in the living room.
Is it?
Yes, it
is. It?
We're going to make money in 2015 because of this.
It's like the SNL skit. How are we going to make money? Volume. Except there isn't really any volume. This is, video games. Obviously, with the next Xbox and this one too, even they're trying to push it beyond video games because I think video games are extremely limited as a market. These kind of hardcore video game machines. There's just a certain number of people that are going to buy these things. But man, it would be something else if 10 years after the 360 launch, we look back and they came in third.
They should fire that Jay Allard guy.
I'd get rid of him first.
Get rid of him first. Show him the door. Did Windows Phone 8 just ask me for an installation disk?
No, it didn't.
It didn't? That's a lie. Lies! So was that
That
faked?
that picture made the rounds on the internet. It was like
you know why it did, though? Because everybody went,
because it's hilarious.
It's hysterical.
Except that guy was trying to flash his phone with an illegal ROM, which is how he got that. So cute, but that's not what happens to people.
World. Yeah. I've never been asked for an installation disk.
The other thing I just point out, though, is Microsoft, one of the big things that they promoted with Windows Phone 8 is that it's Windows 8, and it is. And that, by the way, that screen proves it. That's a good sign, not a bad sign. That shows you that your phone is really sophisticated. So interesting. And I don't think you can plug in a DVD, unfortunately. So you're not going to be able to fix it.
Floppy disk? USB key?
Yeah, maybe a USB dongle. I don't know.
What was the release date of Surface Pro? It's soon, right?
Yeah, it keeps slipping a little bit, but
because I would like to buy one of those.
We're looking
Do you think
at
it'll be
first week of February?
Oh, it's not till February now.
Yeah,
although we don't know when the launch is, right? Still.
Yeah.
Because I think I would like to buy one of those, but I'm not. Well,
I know. This is amazing how we can all talk about how disappointing we are in the Surface and everything, and they Surface Pro we all get like in a tizzy all over again.
Yeah, but
I'm going to buy one immediately. I can't wait to buy one.
Really?
Yeah. And I know it's going to disappoint me in some ways and all that kind of stuff, but it is. It's going to break my heart, Leo. But I don't know. I'm curious about it. I'm curious. I wish the battery life was a little bit better. I'm curious about this kind of active cooling system they have. I don't know. I can never get slapped around enough.
Is that a fan, an active cooling system? What is that?
I guess it's got some kind of vents right around the outer edge that dissipates the heat. And so there has to be a fan in there because it is just a standard Ivy Bridge part. But apparently this keeps the noise down. And the people who saw it, that went out to CS and got to see it, I think universally reported that it was basically silent. Is that right? Am I right about that?
Mm-hmm.
That would be nice.
Yep.
Silence is gold.
So yeah, Panos Panay, who's the head of Surface, tweeted this week that I'm going to China, going to see the first Surface Pros off the line. So they'll be out in a few weeks. So some people took that as they're late. It's a few weeks away. And some people took it as, yeah, that's what we already knew, right? You guys said January. So here they come.
Well, okay.
Yep.
January.
Here they come.
Or February.
Yeah, the one interesting thing that Paul and I both noticed when we were reading some of the reviews was there's a USB connector on the power cable, right?
Yeah, on the power brick.
Oh, that's interesting.
On the power brick,
I
mean.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. I don't think it gets you
place
any.
To put it.
Yeah.
Why? It doesn't take up space on the bezel.
Right.
You got power.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, Lenovo sells an add-on power adapter you can get. You don't get it with the machine normally, but you can buy it separately that does this. It also has a couple of cable splits off of it, so you can plug in a couple of devices right to the power.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I still prefer a second port right on the machine, but yeah, it's better than nothing.
There's one port on the machine.
Yeah.
So you plug your Windows Phone into the other port, and it's down there by the brick.
I would imagine things charge more quickly that way, right? When they're plugged directly into power versus plugged into a computer port. I think that's how that works.
Would it? I don't know. I think that's up to
charging.
That's
I think
just
so.
a design issue.
Quicker charging, Leo.
Quicker charging.
I
I'm
think.
going to stick with it.
All right.
Microsoft Security Essentials fails another BS AV test. That's got to be Paul Thurrott. That's
all right,
Paul
so-
language.
Okay, true, and fair enough. But every couple of months, someone will send me an email or hit me up on Twitter
I
and
see
say,
it
"Hey,
too.
what do
I see
you
it
think about this?"
Yeah.
And it's a link to a story where Microsoft Security Essentials usually has failed yet another AV certification of some kind, and all these other things do really, really well. And I always write back and I say, you know what? In my experience, these tests don't mean anything because I use this thing all the time. My kids use this. We never have any viruses or malware or any problems. And it causes me to go look at my family's computers to make sure that what I just said is still true, and it always is still true. And I never really worry about it, and I continue to use and recommend Microsoft Security Essentials. This one was interesting, though, because Microsoft actually responded to it. What they basically came up with was that this stuff that they're testing against doesn't actually happen in the real world, which they can prove because they have metrics of what happens in the real world. And that there is like a sub 1/100% of time that the stuff that they're talking about is actually an issue. Like it's not real world in the slightest. And so, they were pretty polite about it, but the basic gist of it was these tests don't mean anything. It's what I've been saying all along. In the real world, Security Essentials and its business-oriented brother, Forefront Endpoint Protection, I think, actually work. So
it's so hard to test antiviruses. That's really the truth of it. You can't make a synthetic test.
Then why would you release one and say that Microsoft Security Essentials sucks?
I agree, because you need some sort of thing. But the real problem is they make these tests and then they release them to the antivirus companies who quickly change their antivirus to make sure they do well in the test.
Right. Yeah, and Microsoft's deal is like, look, we're not interested in conforming to some artificial test. Our thing works.
It's artificial. It's like benchmarks. It's very hard to test antiviruses in the real world.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, all you could.
Yeah, and Microsoft was pretty polite about that. I would have been and was less polite about it myself. I mean, I think these tests are complete baloney. I just don't understand why. But they're so regular.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. So I'm glad they respond.
Yeah. Live Mesh ends the day before Valentine's Day. Kind of appropriate.
Live Mesh is like the biggest hot button topic.
You broke my heart, Microsoft.
I can't mention Live Mesh without hearing from disgruntled people.
You broke my heart.
They're really upset about this.
I'm going to cry.
Yeah. They are.
They say use SkyDrive.
Microsoft does,
That's why we made SkyDrive.
And then every time you say that, these guys come up with the 8 reasons why they're not going to do that because it doesn't do the things that they want. And I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but it's like, I've been using this free service for years, and it does exactly what I want. I'm not using this other free service.
I do think it's interesting that instead of deprecating Windows Live Messenger or fading it out, that they're pulling the plug and so abruptly, really. I mean, they didn't warn people. Usually they'll say, in a year, we're going to kill the server, and March 15th.
Yep. You got to be careful about it, too, because you can install a new version of Skype, and it wipes out Live Messenger.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Well, that's one way to handle it.
It's interesting.
That's one way to handle it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You didn't want
It's
that.
nice. The transition is nice because now that I've made this transition, I don't actually get any instant messages from my friends anymore.
That's what
so
I like. Yeah.
I'm not nearly as busy as I used to be.
That's
so
what I appreciate about it.
it's kind of a productivity enhancer.
Yeah. Those IAMs. I kept getting those IAMs.
Yep. Thank you, Microsoft.
So most of the people I talk to who use MSN Messenger, which is a small number, say Skype is not an adequate replacement. They don't like the Skype chat.
That is a fair assessment.
Yeah. Why? Is it a standalone that they like, or what is it that they like?
There are some changes you can make to Skype to make it work a little bit better. The font, I think I talked about this last week. The default font size in Skype is like 6 points or something.
You can't fix that, right? Yeah.
You can. You have to go.
Okay.
You can fix it, and you can configure the application itself to work more like Windows Live Messenger, which I think was my tip last week. But it's just not it's not the same. I'm hoping that between now and the end of the year they update Skype across the board, and by that I mean not just on Windows, the desktop, but Windows, the Metro app, Windows Phone, and so forth, and that they just incorporate better messaging features across the board, because it's just not the same.
Yeah. How about Virgil's asking? He still sees it even though he uninstalled it from his desktop on Hotmail. I presume that will just go away on Hotmail.
The web messenger stuff?
Is that the same?
Well, actually, that's another side issue. So it's kind of strange. When Microsoft made the switch to Outlook.com, they have this, it looks like a Metro-style notification that appears over Outlook.com on the web. That is Web Messenger, right? Web Messenger was something they've had for years. I think as far back as when MSN was around. And in the past, if you were using the Hotmail web interface, there were controls in there to turn it off. And those controls don't exist in Outlook.com for some reason. So you could actually turn off Web Messenger from Windows Live Messenger. But now that Windows Live Messenger is gone, I cannot do that. And so, for example, if Mary Jo were to send me a message via Messenger today, I would get these notifications up in Web Messenger, and there's no way to turn it off. Presumably, this will be fixed, but right now it's in some weird limbo state.
But this is a whole thing about what's going on with all of the Windows Live services, which supposedly now are just called Windows services. They're not called Windows Live services anymore. There's all these other ones that we don't really know what's going on with them, like Live Writer. We don't really know if there's going to be another version or who's doing that or when it's coming.
I like Live Writer. That's too bad.
Yeah. Family Safety, I think, is now part of the Outlook.com team. The Outlook.com team is now working with the Outlook team, which is interesting, even though they still sit in the Windows division. And then Windows Intune, which I thought was sitting in the Windows division, is now part of Server and Tools. So there's a lot of shifting going around with this set of things that used to be a very definable number of services that were meant to complement Windows. And now they're kind of being split out and moved around. And we know that SkyDrive, Outlook, and what else is still sticking around? Skype. I mean, Skype's not considered one of these, but it's like Microsoft's doing a lot of kind of under the covers and interdivisional shifting as to where these things sit and which teams they work with and what they do. And so we don't know if you're an existing Windows Live customer for one or more of the services, it's kind of like, which of these are going to stay alive and which ones aren't? Like Live Mail, another one, right? Like we have the Mail application in Windows 8, but that's not the same thing as Windows Live Mail. So yeah. Kind of puzzling.
Yeah, when Essentials came out, the new version, when it shipped last fall, I assumed it was a beta because half of the apps in it, applications, still said Windows Live something, which was the old name. So Windows Live Mail is still called, it's Windows Live Mail. Windows Live Writer is there. And then the ones that were updated, like Photo Gallery and Movie Maker, dropped the Windows Live name. But they got rid of Windows Live Mesh, and they are getting rid of Windows Live Messenger. These are parts of Essentials. It makes me wonder if anything that's still called Windows Live today is basically deprecated and is just being held in there because there's some number of people that would be aggravated if they just went away, but that the plan is for these things not to be updated going forward and that eventually they'll be dropped off and just won't be part of it anymore. And that wouldn't surprise me, unfortunately. I mean, I'd like to think otherwise, but I'm sure at some point they're going to dump Windows Live Mail and say we don't need this anymore because we have Mail and Calendar and People apps in Windows 8/RT, and that's all we need. Yeah. And I already know, having just said that, I'm going to get email complaints because those apps are so woefully inadequate at this stage in the game. Obviously, they're going to improve, but yeah, that's the future. I know, sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. We still got SkyDrive. We still got Outlook. We still have Skype. We still have Intune. We have, I don't think they'll. I do worry a little bit about Windows Live Writer because that's kind of. I mean, what do they need to have a blogging platform?
It doesn't seem like a core tool for Microsoft to be providing. Yeah,
a core product.
As good as it is. In fact, you can make an argument that
it's awesome.
Yep. Why don't they just open source it or
exactly
give it to
what
someone?
I was going to say. Give it away.
Yeah, because someone could make a cool little business out of that.
I use an app on Mac called Mars Edit that's very similar, and it's a great app. And Daniel Jalkut, who writes it, makes his living off of it. Yeah, I mean, Apple shouldn't be making it. Of course, I understand that, but people
like
who blog
Microsoft
love
making
it.
Photo Gallery makes sense. Microsoft making
different.
Movie Maker makes some sense.
And a blog platform.
Microsoft making Live Writer, it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, but people love it, and it should continue. But maybe Microsoft shouldn't be the one. That's what they really need. They should have spun off Windows Live. They could have. They could have spun off a lot of that.
Interesting, yeah. I think you could argue that you don't.
They still can.
You don't really need Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You don't really need that. There's plenty of third-party software, cheap stuff too. That's good.
Sure.
Better, frankly. And I imagine that's not an insignificant number of resources to dedicate to a free product.
I'm sure there's 3 college interns working on it, actually, but yeah. There's nothing going on with that app when you think about it, right? I mean, it's not like
it did get better. It was bad
in April. They're going to release like a package of add-ons that gives you some kind of new transitions. They never do anything like that. It just kind of sits there.
It just hovers along,
yeah,
singing a song, side by side. Microsoft Office, the new Office. Is that what we call it now? The new Office, like the new iPad?
That's what they want us to call it.
Not now. Office 365, not Office 2013, the new Office.
Right. Yeah. The new Office is coming soon. We know the launch of this thing, which is the day that it goes commercially available. So if you don't already have it from TechNet or MSDN or the Volume Licensing Center, this is the day you'll be able to buy it from retail channels and installed on some new PCs. In some cases. So this is supposed to happen sometime in the next couple weeks, we think. I keep hearing maybe January 29th, maybe not, but right around there is when this launch is going to happen, supposedly. But little bits and pieces are trickling out already because Microsoft's out there briefing their partners who are going to help them sell all of this stuff. So what's very interesting to me is Microsoft's going out, briefing partners privately, and then telling the partners they can talk about it, which is different. So the partners are sharing all the new pricing information, the list of the SKUs. And so we know a lot about what's coming, even though Microsoft hasn't done the official, quote unquote, official launch. But some people were hoping there weren't going to be that many new Office 2013 SKUs. They were thinking maybe Microsoft would go kind of the Apple route and maybe have 1 or 2. But no, there's millions of these things. Sorry, people. I was making a list the other day. There's, there's about 8 different Office 2013 SKUs that I can find. So there are things like Home and Business 2013, Home and Student 2013, Professional 2013, Professional Academic 2013, Professional Plus 2013, Standard 2013. Yeah, it just goes on and on and on. Then you add to that all the things that are going to be labeled Office 365. So there's something we already know about called Office 365 Home Premium, and that's the thing where Microsoft's trying to convince you as a home user that if you pay them every year, you can have the right to install Office on up to 5 Windows PCs or Macs or Macs. You can have any combination you want of that. But then there's all these other ones, too, that they've got coming. Office 365 Small Business Premium, Pro Plus, Mid-sized Business, and Enterprise. So yeah, they didn't get rid of any SKUs. In fact, I think they have even more SKUs than ever. Oh, well, yeah. And on the pricing side, it's pretty much what we had expected. They're going to try to make it more enticing for people to pay by the month or by an annual subscription. So, for example, Office 365 Home Premium is $8.33 per user per month. So it's like $99 a year for that. But if you wanted to buy outright one time, like Office Home and Student 2013, they're going to charge you $139. So they're going to make the subscription-based ones slightly more affordable, hoping that they can convince people that this is the way you should go, that you should go with these subscriptions, get more frequent updates when Microsoft has new things. They can push them out to you more quickly, and that you'll have rights to install it on multiple devices. So those are going to be the big themes you're going to hear at the launch, whenever this launch finally does happen, whether it's January 29th, first week of February, somewhere around there. But the good news is, if you're interested in trying subscriptions, you'll probably be able to get a pretty good deal. If you are not, you're probably going to pay a little more and not get much of a deal.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you. That's how it does. Yeah.
And when does my free preview run out? When do I have to start paying for this thing?
Yeah, so there were some reports this week that the preview is already running out, and so some people were kind of panicking. They were like, "Wait, I can't even buy it yet, but the preview's running out." But no, it was a mistake. It turns out that the preview is not going to run out till I think a few months after the final product is in the market. So if you are one of these people who signed up for the Office 365 Home Premium test, if you now go back in and check your account, it'll say that you've been auto-renewed through February. And they're just going to keep auto-renewing you until they have the Office launch. And then at some point, you're going to get a message from Microsoft saying, okay, free ride's over, pay, or you don't get to keep playing. So just watch for that. It'll be like couple months after the launch. So probably like March, April timeframe is when I think the preview will stop.
Have you heard anything about that? This term's going to be a little bit off, but it's that commercial use license that they have. So if you buy a home version of Office, or you get Office 365, the home premium version, those products are actually licensed only for non-commercial use, but you can buy and upgrade somehow. Do you know how they're going to do that?
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do that, actually. I'm not sure on that.
Really
they did already. Yeah, they did the home use program. They just turned that on this week, I think. So if you are somebody who's a business user and you have...
Oh, no.
So last time this happened, she disappeared. We'll just see what happens this time. And she's disappeared.
Wow.
What is going on? Can you call Mary Jo back? Thank you. I guess we should just stop because she was in the middle of a thought. What we'll do is we'll just cut the tape. See, what you do is you put the tape, we have this aluminum guide, and you put the tape in the aluminum guide, and there's a razor
I used to
blade.
do something similar to this when I pasted up newspapers.
Yeah, very similar.
We use wax and paper.
I got somebody mad at me because, oh no, it was on this show. In fact, I owe Julio Ojeda Zapata a apology. He writes for the Minneapolis Star Tribune, I think, whatever, Star Ledger. So he's going to be mad at me again. And you and I were talking about this wax paste up process. And I said, newspapers still do this. Why don't they do InDesign? He said, nobody still does this. Nobody. And he's right. Everybody's using InDesign or some similar electronic layout. But the way I found that out is I did a search, and I found out where my misguided thinking came from. Because I remember not so long ago going to the San Francisco Chronicle and being stunned that they were still using wax and laying out the cartoons. I was watching them lay out the cartoons. And and it was 2003, and I found an article that said the Chronicle was like the last newspaper in the nation to finally abandon.
I used to do this for the Patriot Ledger in Quincy.
Yeah.
Friday nights, it was the big night because Saturday was like their Sunday paper. And
so you come by being a journalist honest. You did the
I was in the trenches, Leo.
Yeah, that's the real
I also
deal.
worked for the Daily Transcript in Dedham.
Really? So you wanted to be a journalist as a kid?
We had our own printing press.
Or did you want to be a pressman?
No,
that would have been a bad career choice, I might point out.
It was gonna be art related.
Yeah.
I guess.
Oh, interesting. So, you were a graphic designer. That's right. People don't know that you're actually quite an accomplished artist.
Was. It's like
I've seen your.
I was
doodles.
also an accomplished basketball player at one point.
Really?
Yeah, I still play basketball, just not accomplished.
I know you. You play with your your elder men's group, your masters,
Yep.
the basketball masters.
I'm about to cross an interesting milestone. When I was a kid, I played basketball in a league with my dad at the school up the street. So this would have been in the 1980s. And I play there now as an adult, coincidentally, really. But my son is 14, so we often need guys, and it's only going to be a matter of time before he will show up in some sub capacity and then be playing basketball with me on the same court that I played with my dad when I was a kid.
Wow.
Which is going to be a weird moment for me.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's kind of neat. Here's the article, by the way, from 2003, where they're talking to the pressman at the San Francisco Chronicle.
Sure.
They waxed, now wane, and
Notice, by the way, the lack of non-white hair in this photo.
These guys.
I mean, these guys, started doing this when World War II was ending.
Yeah. This was in 2003, and it says that the Chronicle was one of the last newspapers that finally went to a digital pagination system. The last major dailies. Now, I bet there's a lot of small papers still, they couldn't afford, these all of this.
Sure.
But so Julio, I apologize. You're absolutely right. Big papers, most papers.
Well, this is like any other business where if you were a small paper, small papers don't print their own paper. It's done for them by some local company that does it for everybody. And they probably, in some ways, might have switched over more quickly simply because they didn't have to do it themselves.
That's true. That's a good point.
It was an efficiency thing.
And the Chronicle, for a long time, had, during press time, the building was vibrating because they had the big presses.
Oh yeah, no, I used to hang out in the.
So cool, wasn't it?
Press, yeah.
He's, by the way, Julio, I apologize. He's with the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Let's get that newspaper name correct. Julio Ojeda Zapata. So I apologize, Julio. He was fairly livid that I would imply. It's really interesting because when you are in a field and you know the facts of that field, you're always disappointed by mainstream media who gets it wrong.
Oh, well, Mary Jo will appreciate this because I have a sort of undying love for any media that holds up journalism in the best possible light. So something like All the President's Men, like the movie version, especially where it's like you venerate these people, Yeah. It's not the way it is in real life.
No.
And
they're hard drinking sons of
wish it
bitches and never forget it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mary Jo is back. To what do you ascribe your internet difficulties, MJ?
I ascribe it to me bad-mouthing the Messenger dying off and Skype taking over.
I think so. Skype is getting you.
So.
It's Skype's fault.
You have
Skype
angered
is like
the
rattling
gods.
my plug.
Skype. Did you guys watch the Facebook announcement? It's actually a Bing announcement. It's funny. I couldn't say anything, but we had somebody who had worked on the Facebook Bing integration in the studio audience on Sunday. He said, I could tell you what that announcement's going to be on Tuesday. And he described it exactly. He said, but you can't say anything. And so I didn't, being the crappy journalist that I am. I held back, but it is a Bing thing as much as it is a.
Is it though? Is that true?
Well,
No. Oh.
Okay.
There
No,
is some
but
Bing
there is a
integration, isn't there? There's a Bing
there is
component.
Bing integration, yeah. But so what it does is, this new graph search that Facebook built. When you search within your friends, you can get a more refined set of.
Oh dear! Oh dear!
Oh no!
Oh dear!
Oh no! Not again!
No, she's back. Wait.
Don't move, Mary Jo.
Back. Don't move.
Don't touch anything.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not touching a thing.
Okay.
My back.
Blink occasionally so we know you're still there.
Okay. Alive. But no, so the Bing part is if you search on something within Facebook's graph search, and it's not within your set of data that it can find, it'll take you out to Bing and let you do a web search. Okay. Bing already powers the web search for Facebook. So this isn't even new. It's just Microsoft kind of putting a spin on it saying, hey, we're part of this. And it's better that, and it's at least they're not defaulting to Google, right? So that's the good part for Bing. That's a positive.
But I do note that when I go to Bing, I have this Facebook Connect thing here. So I will connect my, I can connect my Facebook to Bing so that but it's done that for a long time.
Yeah. Do you guys like that? I don't actually like that. That's the social
notice I
sidebar.
hadn't actually connected it.
Yeah.
Me neither. I know. Same.
I don't really care.
No. When I'm binging something, if I'm doing that, I know I just used it as a verb. I know. Wow. What a nerd.
Nobody does that, Mary Jo, but please continue.
I just did. Okay. Say
You must be a
binging
Microsoft
something.
hater. And by the way, I'm getting flamed on Twitter for how dare you run a show and not like Microsoft? How dare you? Anyway,
How dare you, Leo?
Well, you're not allowed to have an opinion.
How dare I?
No, if you go on Bing and you do link up Facebook and say you type in best deli in New York and one of your friends on Facebook has recommended something, you'll see it in the results. I don't want that.
Mostly because your friends don't have good taste.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. I don't like
this that frankly Facebook's going to have is that in order for this to work, A, you have to have lots of friends, and B, your friends have to be extraordinarily, unusually active Facebook users, liking things right and left, including dentists and plumbers, as well as delis, and people, I don't, my experience has been, and I use Facebook pretty heavily, people don't do that.
Last night, I went out for a beer with a friend of mine from basketball.
Yeah.
Who has no taste at all, no good taste at all. And I found an Avery White Rascal beer in this place we went to, if you can believe that, outside of Boston.
Wow.
And he had a blueberry beer.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He said, "You got to taste this."
No.
And I said,
"No, I don't.
I really don't."
So as an experiment, I turned on the social results in my Bing here. And this is not new. And when I search for pizza in Petaluma, I get 2 results from friends. 4 friends liked Pizza Hut of Canada.
Oh my God!
So those guys are no longer my friends. And then Glenn
That's
Rubinstein.
not a bad way to rate them.
Yeah, really. Trey Ratcliffe, I guess I'm not going to trust your pizza recommendations ever again. And then Glenn Rubinstein, who works here, says, how the hell is Red Boy Pizza still in business? And I agree with that one. Terrible pizza. But again, this is not helping me in my search at all. It's just not germane, right? And I think that's the problem with social graph in search in general.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there you have it. By the way, the 4 friends who like Pizza Hut of Canada, none of them live in Canada. and none of them live in Petaluma. So I don't understand why that showed up at all.
Hopefully you didn't make a decision based on that.
I did not.
Well,
that's precisely the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think, though, if you're searching for friends' pictures of Paris, that's a nice thing to be able to do, I guess. There's some value to that.
But on Facebook, if I understand how this works, because I don't have access to this beta yet.
Neither do I.
Basically, you do some kind of crazy new age search, and if it comes up with stuff, you get some kind of nice Facebooky experience. But if it doesn't, you get Bing search results that just are inside of Facebook that just look like Bing search results.
So there's the Bing integration.
It's not much of an integration.
Yeah.
You never want that.
Right.
That's not a viable alternative to what you were trying to do. I don't know. It seems like they just got kicked to the curb to me.
Hey, thanks to Patterson in our chat room, I now know that Pizza Hut offers a perfume
God.
that smells of hand-turned dough.
It smells of ham.
Pizza Hut asked Shane's Facebook fans what they would name the perfume that smells like a box of Pizza Hut pizza being opened. Maybe they aren't going to do this. Oh, to Pizza Hut.
That can't be real.
I think it's marketing.
Is it actually? It should just be olive oil.
Yeah.
So that you could just use it.
Yeah, that smells good.
Otherwise.
Nothing like the smell of soggy cardboard and plastic cheese to really wake the senses up. Chrome now at version 25. But that's meaningless. Firefox is the same thing. It's like they've turned over a version a week now.
I know.
So that's meaningless.
I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah. They do have speech recognition built in, which is kind of cool. This is a differentiator, I think, for Google. They have all this data, and they're doing some very interesting speech stuff.
I think speech is going to be a bigger deal than multi-touch at the end of the day.
I agree. I agree. We're all going to be talking to ourselves all the time.
We already are.
Yeah, why not? Just make it.
It might as well trigger some action.
Yeah, right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, your picks of the week, software and beer, and I can't wait to try this beer. It's made for Paul, isn't it?
Nice.
It's made a beer even Paul Thurrott could love. But first, a word from our friends at Citrix, who make the best way to share files in business. Now, you may be using other solutions, but if you're in business, I got a suggestion. Paul Thurrott. Maybe you don't want to have to require somebody to create an account and log into a service just to see the file you're sharing with them. Just a thought. I'm just saying.
Okay.
No. I'm going to drop it. I'm dropping it. But ShareFile is very cool because it allows you, if you've been attaching files to email, that's obviously not going to work. I mean, these files are getting bigger and bigger, get bounce backs. And one must not forget that email is inherently insecure, that, the servers along the way can read it. So if you're in a business where regulations require privacy, HIPAA, for instance, if you're a medical professional, you can't send patient documents via email. You shouldn't be. It's illegal because it's not secure. HIPAA compliant? You bet. ShareFile.com. I want you to check it out. Here's my ShareFile page. First of all, you notice it's branded. It's very cool. Now, let's say I wanted to send a file. Oh, I love this on the right, too. You can see all the files. You have a temporary file box, so you can just, temporarily drag one there. You have employee file boxes, but you can also see all the files you've ever sent, all the messages to whom, what happened when they expire. Yes, you can have expirations. Let me give you an example. Let's say I wanted to send Paul Thurrott notes about a show that we were about to do. All I would do is I would find the file. Here, this is, by the way, a local...
It's a very specific scenario. I don't mean to interrupt that.
It's a local folder on my drive that's always synchronized via the ShareFile app. I press the send button. Now, I could just have it go out as email. By the way, there is an Outlook plugin, which makes this very easy. But I can also say, and I often do this, just give me a link because I want to put a non-expiring link in my email. Or expiring. Look at this. Download access expires never. That's usually what I send. But what if you said, I only want them to get this for 1 day or a week or a month? Like maybe if you were sending me show notes, after a week, don't make those show notes available because they're out of date. After a year, 6 months, I could say how many downloads per user. So, if you want to be really restrictive, you could say, email me when the file's been downloaded. Require recipients to enter name and email before downloading. Access expires after a day, and they can only download it once. You have those options, which is fantastic. I mean, that's real control over the file. These files are always visible, by the way. All your ShareFile folders visible online to you, which makes it very easy to send a file from your phone, for instance. I'm going to click Send File, and then what I'm going to get is a link. And I'll show you what happens when your recipient gets this link in the email. I'll just paste it in. They get sent to a special site with your logo, your branding, and a very simple download button. No login, no passwords, no accounts, just the file. It's the easiest way to share, especially if you're sharing with people who aren't super sophisticated. You don't want to have them jump through hoops. It's very easy. I want you to try ShareFile free. They've got specializations, customizations for virtually every business. Very good security. You access your files from anywhere. 30 days free. ShareFile.com. Use our offer code Windows. I have tried a lot of ways. Where I do use this, and you can tell if you look at my ShareFile, is for radio shows, because I'm always sending radio stations tracks, spots, things like that. And I found there's a kind of a wide-ranging capabilities among the people I'm sending these files to. And sometimes they delete the files as I'm sending them out and so forth. Now it's very simple. I send them a link. It's so straightforward. I know when they've downloaded it. I get an email. This is fantastic. You can even say folder by folder. Email me whenever a file's downloaded from this folder. If you have company folders, you can also say uploaded to this folder. Uploads are automatic, as I said, with the ShareFile software. The synchronization software is fantastic. Try it. ShareFile.com. The promo code is Windows. And we thank Citrix. Citrix just makes so many great products for business. We thank them so much for their support of Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, Windows Weekly. And now it's time. This is kind of the moment I look forward to each week for our picks of the week, starting with your tip, Paul.
I kind of overloaded on the tip, so I'll try to move through this quickly.
That's all right. We got plenty of time. It's only, midday.
Okay. So the tip of the week is actually, I did this for both Windows 8 now and Windows Phone 8, which is that I've been writing tips about both of these systems for a long time, and I finally collected them into a single article. So if you're just getting started with Windows Phone 8, I have over 30 tips for that system, and I have over 50 for Windows 8, but you can finally reach them all in a single location rather than, having to search the site or whatever. So I've got a link in the notes there for my complete compendium of Windows Phone 8 tips. But also I wanted to alert people that Charles Petzold has completed the book Programming Windows 6th edition, which is his book for Metro-style programming for Windows 8 and Windows RT. I think it's 1,000 or 1,100 pages long. It's really long. And this is the book that they announced early last year, and then he released over time, so that the earlier you purchased it, the less it cost. And then you talked about updates as it went. And so it's an ebook, and presumably, I guess, will be a printed book as well. But if you buy it now, it's $40. It's normally $50. And I've not read all of it, but I've been reading it, and it looks pretty incredible.
This is nice of you to plug somebody else's Windows Phone book. You're a nice guy, Paul.
Windows book.
Oh, Windows book.
Yep.
Oh, never mind.
That's okay. I read
a Windows book too.
Well, this is a programming Windows book. I don't have a program.
Oh, never mind then. You get no credit from me.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
And I have two software picks,
Yes.
one for Windows and one for Windows Phone. So I used to recommend the Real Player for downloading YouTube videos.
Oh, it's a long time ago, right?
Nobody likes Real Player.
No.
And lately it hasn't been working for me, so I've been searching for something else. And I found it in YouTube Downloader HD, which is actually pretty awesome because the way you can configure this thing is you can go in and say, I want the 1080p version of this video. And if it is not available, it will go down to 720p and then 480 and then 320 and until it finds the highest quality version. And then it will download it in H.264 format to your PC. And it's free and it works great. It's an excellent way to download videos from YouTube.
Cool.
And then the second one is that LastPass for Windows Phone, which has actually been out for a while, just got a significant update and support for Windows Phone 8. And this app is now awesome. It looks like a Windows Phone app, which, a standard icon, standard UI, and all that kind of stuff. It has new panels for secure notes and favorites. But the big thing is that it supports something that it didn't before, which the Windows 8 app still doesn't support, which is the ability to create unique, secure passwords. And so you can do that on the fly. So if you're signing up for a service,
they're great.
Yeah, as you should. And so if you're doing it on your phone now, if you're signing up for a new service or whatever, you can have LastPass generate the password. It's got you hold or tap and hold on it. It will paste it, and then, copy it into the clipboard, and then you can paste it into the app or the web page or whatever. Yeah,
that's
really
highly recommended.
Yeah.
You do have to have the premium version. That's $1 a month. But
Yes, you do.
boy,
Yeah.
I just think LastPass is so good. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and so this new version of the app is great. I'm hoping they update the Windows 8 app as well to suit. But,
Good.
Yeah, good stuff.
Your enterprise pick of the week, Mary Jo Foley just pasted it in.
I did. I just switched what I wanted to do because I forgot this really good one.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I've talked about this thing codenamed Drawbridge before, which is a project for Microsoft Research, and it's for people who know a lot about operating systems concepts. It's what's called a library OS, and what it's supposed to do is let you ultimately replace virtual machines with this new kind of virtualization technology. So everybody was like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of cool, but it's just a research project, not that interesting. One of my contacts this week found a hidden job post at Microsoft that is advertising for a test, somebody in test to test Drawbridge on top of Windows Azure. Ooh. So what this means is this Drawbridge technology is likely to come to Azure sooner rather than later, and it could give Microsoft a new way to provide customers on Windows Azure with a whole new kind of virtualization technology that may be more cost effective, more secure, and less cumbersome. So, for all the people who thought Drawbridge was like years and years away, it's actually could be coming out sooner than we think. So watch for that. I think they may even have it out in test sometime soon.
Do you want to describe what library
OS is?
Is that too much to ask?
I think I don't think I could do this justice, having never taken a computer science class in my life. But what it does is it is like virtualization. It lets you run an operating system on top of another operating system. So just like a VM in a way, it'll let you run, say, an existing version of Windows, like Windows 7, Windows 8, even a more experimental OS like the Midori project at Microsoft, which is a whole new OS they're building. You could run it right on top of your host environment, and then say you wanted to update a whole bunch of different operating systems at the same time with a new patch. You could just go across and update them all at the same time because they'd all be like in their own little virtual sandbox kind of a thing. So I'm not doing this justice, but that's kind of my limited understanding of how that would work.
It's good enough for me.
Okay.
And your codename pick of the week?
Codename pick of the week is Trinity, which is
it's been used before.
That
was the day the atomic bomb was exploded.
It's been used a few times, I bet. This Trinity, though, another Microsoft research project, but very interesting given the Facebook news this week, because what Trinity is a graph database that Microsoft Research in Asia has built. And I've written about this code name before, and another one where I thought, it's really far away. The code is still only available to people who work at Microsoft. It's on the intranet. But then when I went back and checked on it this week, because I was like, you know what? I wonder what they're doing with their graph database that they're building, just like the Facebook graph search thing. I went back and looked, and they have a whole, like a 70-page manual posted to the research site. So you go get it now before they pull it down after I talk about it. That talks all about what Trinity is and the architecture of Trinity. It talks about how it integrates with SQL Server. They describe it in a very buzzword-like way. They say Trinity is a general-purpose distributed graph system on a memory cloud. And as Chris Brownie said to me on Twitter, what the heck is a memory cloud? I don't know. It's a cloud with memory? I don't know. I really don't know what it is. But it's something they've already built. They're testing it, and there's even a manual for it describing how to work with it. So maybe, again, this perhaps isn't as far away as we think. And it could give them some of the kinds of like searching for a more limited and filtered set of data like Facebook's trying to build sometime soon.
Finally, by the way, how is the beer challenge going?
Beer challenge is going well. I've done 21.
21 out of
21
40.
styles.
And how many days are 17th day of the month?
Yeah.
So you're right
okay.
on pace. You're going to have to get a little more drinking involved, but you'll make it.
I'll make it.
I have faith.
I think so. I have faith too.
We all believe in you, Mary Jo.
Thanks. Thanks for the back.
She's the Lance Armstrong of beer. No, wait a minute. That's wrong.
No. Maybe I'll have to do the last beer on Windows Weekly.
Would you?
Home and then she chugs Bud Light in the secrecy of your apartment.
Would you do that?
Yeah. That would be fun.
Mary Jo Foley's Beer Challenge is sponsored by the U.S. Postal Service.
Nice.
Your beer of
the beer of the week. This is for Paul Thoreau.
It is. Look at
pick.
this.
The pick is Brooklyn Black Ops. That is a real beer, everyone. Although, as they describe it, Brooklyn Black Ops does not exist. However, if it did exist, it would be a robust stout concocted by the Brooklyn Brewing Team under cover of secrecy. And it is. It's very secret. They won't tell you at Brooklyn Brewery how they make Brooklyn Black Ops.
11.3.
But if you...
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's like one of the best beers I've ever had.
It
so if you ever
sounds
see it,
laying down in bed so you don't collapse.
Aged for 4 months in bourbon barrels.
Bourbon barrels. I know. How can it be bad,
and
right?
then, get this, they bottle it flat and then re-ferment it with champagne yeast.
I know. Crazy, right?
I've never heard of that.
No. It's very It's a very unusual thing, but wow, it's really great. And sometimes you can get it on tap in New York because we're not so far from Brooklyn Brewing. But if you even see a bottle of it, get it.
Oh, you can't, and you probably couldn't order it online.
Well, it says they say there are only 1,000 cases. I don't know if that's true because I've seen it in a lot of places.
Oh. Well, it is from Brooklyn, and you're in New York, so I doubt it's going to make it out here.
I don't know. You guys have a lot of good specialty
I just
beers.
saw Avery Beer in Boston. Anything is possible.
It says, find Brooklyn Black Ops in Baltimore, Burlington, Charlotte, Chicago, Denver, Hartford. But I don't see it out here. I think it didn't make it all the way out. No. Oh.
But yeah. Next time you're here, Leo. Next time you're here, Leo, we'll have to get a bottle for you.
But I got to tell you, it's the same thing with wine, with anything. The way they describe it makes it sound fantastic. It creates big chocolate and coffee flavors with a rich underpinning of vanilla-like oat notes.
Just to be clear, chocolate and coffee flavors in beer are often terrible.
Well, that's the problem is you drink it and then you go, oh, no,
they can be good.
It tastes like beer.
Yeah, they can be.
It usually has the word Bach in the title. And
Well, this is a heavy, dark beer, right? This is almost like a Bach beer, probably, yeah.
It is, but it's really good. I could not recommend it any more highly. Paul,
you would not
I think
be able to go
love
on a
it.
black op after drinking this, just to be clear.
No, you would not.
No, it's for drinking after you return from a successful black op.
Yep.
Incidentally, you may be thrilled to learn, Paul Thurrott, that the first Dunkin' Donuts west of the Mississippi will be opening in Los Angeles soon.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm not sure what that means. There are Dunkin' Donuts west of the Mississippi.
Oh, okay. I made that up.
Okay.
But I've never seen one. In fact, I told you the story. I brought my daughter years ago to New Haven, and we drove by a Dunkin' Donuts, and she wanted to stop and say, Dad, it's Dunkin' Donuts. Let's stop.
You're like, relax. There's going to be another one in 10 seconds. Did I share with you the statistic that I read in the paper recently that there are more Dunkin' Donuts in Manhattan than there are Starbucks?
What? That can't be.
Yeah. And
You
that,
kidding?
folks, is why I love New York.
Oh.
I love it. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, I love you guys. It's always fun. Windows Weekly.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but we don't have an Audible pick. Is that right?
You can mention something. It's not a.
No, I just wanted to mention that the Audible app for Windows 8 and RT is back in the Windows Store. So if you missed it last time, it was gone for a bit, and it is back. And it doesn't appear to have changed in the slightest. In fact, I think it's the exact same build that was there before.
I love what you've done, which is, and you didn't do this at the behest of an advertiser. You did it just because you love Audible. You made a page of all your recommendations and some ebooks, too, from 2012.
Yeah, I did something like this last year, too.
That is thank you. I think that's so cool. Do you use Goodreads or anything like that? Any one of those social book reading sites?
No.
Because you could post them there. But I guess, you got a blog. That's what it's for.
You know what I noticed doing this? I recommended a lot of Stephen King books last year.
You love your Stephen King.
A lot of Stephen King books.
Yeah.
I went on kind of a Stephen King kick, apparently, about halfway through the year.
Can't go wrong with Mr. King. Paul Thurrott writes at, in fact, that's where you'll find that page, the super site for Windows, winsupersite.com. He's also an analyst for Penton Media, the author of many, many books. How many total, Paul? Have you counted them?
No, I was just looking at them upstairs. There's over 25.
Wow.
I'm not really positive of the exact
That's
number.
an amazing
It's more than
number.
25.
That's an amazing number of books. His latest, Windows 8 Secrets and Windows Phone Secrets, available in bookstores everywhere. And you can do his Windows Phone 8 Secrets online at thewindowsphonebook.com. windowsphonebook.com.
Yeah, I can't call it. I'm not going to call it secrets
There will not be he can't.
For wildly associated legal reasons. but I'll call it something.
Did you see tonight at 7 o'clock, we're going to do a special with Adam Carolla. Did you see that there's a guy going around suing podcasters?
Yes, I heard about this.
And we have not been sued yet. And partly because I don't call myself a podcaster.
I think we should take this guy up back and have a stern discussion.
No kidding. No kidding. But anyway, I'll be talking about Adam about that 7 o'clock. It's about 7:15 Pacific, 10:15 Eastern time tonight on Twit. Simulcast with Adam's own podcast.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I think we need to do some sort of legal defense fund. He shouldn't have to take the hit for everybody. So we're going to try to figure that out. Mary Jo Foley is at allaboutmicrosoft.com. You can read all of her writings there. And we, of course, do this show Thursdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I love it if you watch live at twit.tv, but you can always watch after the fact. Online downloads, also known as onloads, are available at twit.tv and wherever podcasts are stored. And I should mention, I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again, that we have changed the YouTube feed. If you've been going to youtube.com/twit to watch the show on YouTube, this is now our specials feed and our promo feed. Each show, and you'll see this over on the right-hand side, has its own direct feed. And the reason we did this is so you could go to their page and subscribe there. So if you go to youtube.com/Windows Weekly, that's now the official Windows Weekly page on YouTube. And we've done that for all the shows, the reason being that in the past you'd have to subscribe to one large feed and get notifications about every show. Now you can go to individual shows. So you'll find that directory at youtube.com/twit.
It's like we're a real thing now.
After how many years?
Well, it took 300 episodes or whatever.
Our 300 episodes is coming up in about a month. That'll be fun. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Mary Jo. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.